Mark and Linda had been married for over 3 decades. They had weathered the storms of raising children, building careers, and facing life's unexpected turns. But now, in their mid-50s, they found themselves at a crossroads, a stage of life where their bodies no longer bounced back like they once did, and where staying healthy required conscious effort. Mark had never been one to worry much about his health. He had always been an active guy in his younger years, playing basketball with friends, working on home improvement projects, and chasing after the kids when they were little. But after retirement, with no set routine and plenty of comfort food within arm's reach, he had fallen into a sedentary lifestyle. Linda, on the other hand, had always been mindful of her well-being. She loved her morning walks, enjoyed yoga occasionally, and had a knack for finding ways to stay moving. But even she had to admit that time had caught up with her. It wasn't until Mark's annual checkup that reality hit them both. "Your cholesterol is high, Mark. Your blood pressure isn't where it should be, and frankly, you're carrying more weight than your body can handle," the doctor said. Mark shrugged. "I feel fine," the doctor sighed. "That's the thing about your 50s. You might feel fine, until one day you don't. If you don't start making changes now, it's only going to get harder." Linda could see the hesitation in Mark's eyes. She knew that he hated being told what to do, but she also knew that deep down, he was worried. On the way home, she reached over and squeezed his hand. "We're in this together," she said. "Whatever changes we need to make, we'll do them as a team." Mark sighed but nodded. "Okay, but don't expect me to start eating kale smoothies." Linda laughed. "Fair enough." And so their journey began. The next morning, Linda woke up early, put on her walking shoes, and nudged Mark awake. "Come on, let's go for a walk." Mark groaned. "Can't we start tomorrow?" Linda smirked. "Nope. If we start tomorrow, we'll say the same thing every day after that." Grumbling, Mark got dressed and followed her outside. The air was crisp and the neighborhood was quiet as they walked down the familiar streets. Linda enjoyed it, but Mark was struggling. "How is it possible that a 15-minute walk is this exhausting?" he muttered, hands on his hips. Linda chuckled. "It's been years since you've done this, love. Your body just needs to wake up." Mark wasn't convinced, but he didn't quit. The first week was miserable. His muscles ached, he was constantly out of breath, and he found himself eyeing the couch longingly. But every morning, Linda was there, lacing up her shoes, waiting for him at the door. Some days they walked in silence, simply enjoying the morning air. Other days they talked, really talked, about their lives, their dreams, and even silly things like what they wanted to do when they became grandparents. Slowly, something shifted. Mark started looking forward to their walks. As the weeks went by, they added more activities. Linda suggested the strength training, which Mark initially scoffed at, until he read an article about how lifting weights could help men maintain muscle mass and reduce joint pain. One afternoon, they bought a pair of light dumbbells and set up a small workout space in their garage. "All right, Mr. Tough Guy," Linda teased. "Let's see what you've got." Mark picked up the weights and started curling them, only to groan a few reps in. "This is harder than it looks," Linda laughed. "Told you." They became each other's biggest supporters. When Mark struggled with certain exercises, Linda encouraged him. When Linda had trouble keeping up with longer walks, Mark slowed down and reassured her. They learned patience, not just with their aging bodies, but with each other. One evening, after a particularly long walk, They collapsed on the couch, sweaty and exhausted. Mark turned to Linda and said, "You know, I thought this would be miserable, but I kinda like it." Linda smiled. "I do too." Just when they thought they were getting into a rhythm, life threw them a curveball. Linda woke up one morning with sharp pain in her knee. At first, she ignored it, assuming it would go away. But after a few days, it only got worse. The doctor diagnosed her with arthritis. "It's common at your age," he said. "You'll need to modify your workouts, but don't stop moving." Linda was frustrated. Just when we were making progress, Mark saw the disappointment in her eyes and knew he had to step up. "Hey," he said, taking her hand. "You didn't let me quit when I wanted to. I'm not letting you quit either. We'll figure this out together." So they adapted. Instead of long walks, they switched to swimming at the community pool. Instead of certain weight exercises, they focused on stretches and low-impact movements. And slowly, Linda's knee improved. She realized something important. Exercise wasn't just about pushing yourself. It was about listening to your body, adapting, and moving forward in whatever way you could. Months passed, and the changes in their lives became undeniable. Mark's blood pressure improved. He had more energy than he'd had in years. Linda felt stronger, more balanced. But the biggest change wasn't physical. It was in their relationship. They had rediscovered a kind of connection they hadn't felt in years. One evening, while preparing dinner, Linda looked at Mark and smiled. "You know what I realized?" Mark glanced up. "What?" "We're dating again." Mark raised an eyebrow. "How do you figure?" "Think about it," Linda said. "We go on walks together. We try new things together. We talk more than we have in years. It's like we fell in love all over again." Mark thought about it and nodded. "You might be right." Then he grinned. "Does that mean I have to take you out for a fancy dinner now?" Linda laughed. "It wouldn't hurt." As they became healthier, their children and friends took notice. Their son, Jason, called one afternoon. "Mom, Dad, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. You guys look great." Their best friends, another couple in their 50s, started joining them for weekend walks. Before long, Mark and Linda weren't just changing their own lives. They were inspiring others. And that felt even better than fitting into their old jeans again. A year later, they stood at the starting line of their first 5K charity walk. Mark stretched and looked around. "Can you believe we're doing this?" Linda smiled. "A year ago, you could barely walk up the street without complaining." Mark chuckled. "And now I'm about to walk 3 miles for fun. Who would have thought?" They took each other's hands as the race started. They weren't the fastest, they weren't the strongest, but they had won something greater, the ability to live life fully, together. As they crossed the finish line, Mark looked at Linda and smiled. "Best decision I ever made," he said. Linda squeezed his hand. "Me too. Because love isn't just about growing old together. It's about making sure you're strong enough to enjoy every moment of it."